Welcome everybody to this webinar around Bridges Out of Poverty Relationships and Tools Overview. My name is Suzie Johnson-Smith and I work in Peterborough, Ontario, Canada in a social services agency. I'm the certified trainer here for our organization and our community, and I am also an AHA consultant. I've recently been involved from that role in helping to update all of the current Bridges certified training material. And we determined that it would be helpful to do this webinar for trainers to be able to promote and explain the use of the tools slides a little more thoroughly, and that this webinar we're hoping will help you do so. So again, welcome. And this will only be about a few minutes, just going over the few slides that are at the end of day one. So as you all know, in our Bridges Out of Poverty individual lens, we talk about the power of relationships, how important relationships are, and through viewing economic environments through our mental models and then discovering and analyzing hidden rules of economic class, we realize and learn how quickly relationships trump everything in poverty. And the importance by the end of the day one material, the importance that we're trying to get across for our audience around the building and maintaining relationships of mutual respect, where the flow of information is going both ways, and that both parties feel like they're in a partnership and that they're thinking partners to help one another. We want to, throughout that day, help build understanding for our participants, but we also want to leave them with concrete tools and strategies to actually change the way they have conversations with the clients they're serving, particularly the clients that they're serving from generational poverty. So, as I mentioned, we learned in our day one material that we really need to have this relationship of mutual respect. We need to have a powerful relationship. I love this quote from James Comer around the power of, creating an environment that's conducive for learning with our clients. So before I enter into going through the tools slide, which have recently been updated for you all, I just, really need to stress that one of the things that you're making sure your audience knows is that you can't enter into these coaching relationship or coaching tools without that relationship from the beginning, without the relationship of mutual respect. And so, that's why this ends the day of day one around going through these significant tools that we can be using to promote change, to create future story with our clients, offer a voice, choice, power, and control for our clients that we're serving to break that cycle of long-term generational poverty. So the new slides in our new training information looks like in chart format. And so before, you'll remember that the page really just had the name of the tools, and we've now given a little bit more context, and your talking notes are much more thorough. And I'm just going to go through a few with some examples for you to try and help sort of deepen that learning for you as a trainer. The first one being procedure and routine, which is really, it is exactly what we call it. And really that is about focusing on tasks versus problems. So, I want you to think of a time when perhaps you were at, a low state in your life, you'd had a loss or something that had happened, and, putting one foot in front of the other and someone promoting a sense of routine helped us to get out of bed, put one foot in front of the other, and focus on tasks as opposed to what we were currently experiencing. So it is actually a tool in coaching where we promote a sense of procedure and routine. If you choose, then you have chosen is a really powerful statement. And it doesn't have to be said in exactly those words, but it's about respectfully taking the client to a place of their choices have consequences. And I've even used it in a parenting context where I've said, if you choose to continue, to skip school, then you're choosing not to use the car. So it's not me being the mean parent. And so we can use this in all aspects of our life around in health. We can, if you choose to continue to, eat this particular way, whatever way it is that you're trying to talk to the client about, whether or not it's a lot of sugar, then you've chosen, to continue on this scale of progressing your diabetes. Whenever we put the choice of whatever the client's behavior is, and then reframe it with the action or the result of their choices, it actually reframes it into circumstances that are within their control, and they can choose to go down a different path. Bracketing is a really powerful one that I love, particularly as we learn in day one material around when someone is in circular story structure, when a client has so many things going on, they're in tyranny of the moment, they're in circular story structure, there's lots of stuff happening, and they may come into the office and present with, 8 or 10 or a dozen things that are happening in their life. And when we use bracketing in a supportive coaching way, again, needing to have a relationship of mutual respect to do so, then I might say to a client, wow, there's a lot happening, and there's about 10 things that you've just named there. What's one thing, in the context of only having 10 or 15 minutes together today, what's the top most important thing that you would like to work on today? And we can park or bracket, the other remaining issues for the appointment tomorrow or the next day or whenever the future appointment is. That puts the client in a position of choice and power. It lets them actually, choose the issue that they would like to deal with in crisis in that moment, and promotes mutual respect. Positive affirmation self-talk, it's actually proven that it promotes a shift in our mindset. And so even as trainers, you may start, before you do your training, you may start by saying, this is going to go well. This is going to be a good training session. You've got this in the mirror, whatever the case may be. And I know sometimes some people might think, oh, I can't do that, but it actually influences our actions and our thoughts and our mindset when we begin our day or begin something that's really important, a job interview, whatever the case may be, with a positive affirmation or some self-talk. It actually really does work. So promoting our clients to do that as well through coaching relationship is really powerful. Future story and planning backwards. We talk about this a lot throughout the entire day one material, because really at the end of the day with Bridges, we're trying to promote that sense of future orientation and choice and power and the plan to get there. So future story using visioning creates hope, it creates clarity, it takes the individual out of concrete tyranny of the moment and into abstract thinking, creating that picture, if nothing were in the way, what could life look like? If you could paint that picture for me on the wall in front of us, this blank slate, what would that look like? What would that feel like? So again, we're using all of our senses. And then in conjunction with that, to plan backwards is extremely powerful, to start with the end in mind and then actually plan backwards. And it could be a matter of weeks, or it could be a year-long plan. It even works for ourselves, in project management. I will timeline when my deadline is that I need to get the item in for, and then work backwards so that I can actually get to what I need to do this week and next week and the week after. It is a particularly helpful tool for those who have difficulty getting started. And oftentimes it really works well in education. Oftentimes when we say to a client, what their future story is, and so they will get dreaming and thinking about what a perfect future story could look like. And when we use planning backwards, instead of me as the worker saying, have you thought about going back to school? When we actually use planning backwards, 9 times out of 10, the client says, well, I guess I could start looking into those last couple of credits I need to finish school. And so it changes the trajectory of the conversation to use future story and visioning with a planning backwards approach, particularly for individuals who are in tyranny of the moment, reactive, stressful environment, and who might have difficulty getting started with planning. Replacement behaviors really is exactly what we call that, and it is identifying other options that might replace high-risk behaviors. It's often used in mental health and addictions, particularly with harm reduction strategies, but it's also as simple as, in teaching, teachers will offer this as a replacement for a student that continues to blurt out, for example, with identifying positive options like, raising the hand before speaking, etc. And so it can be very simple and it can be very complex, from right through to harm reduction strategies, but it really is offering choices around replacement options and replacement behaviors that might be more healthier and more conducive to get the individual the response that they're looking for. Helping another person is proven data-wise to significantly increase self-esteem and self-efficacy. So, in coaching, we use this as a championing moment. So, when a client says, I helped a friend move on the weekend, or a client says, I'm going to go serve a community meal, any element that is speaking to helping another person, a friend, watching their child for them, giving a ride, or volunteering and doing some community work. Really, in coaching, it's about championing that. And so because we know that it increases self-esteem and increases self-efficacy and confidence, then we want to promote it. So when you hear those opportunities, when you hear your client saying, I did this and it's in relation to helping another individual or a community, then promoting it and championing it and acknowledging it so that we don't miss those opportunities to build relationship. Metaphor stories are a rich, powerful story that uses our emotion and our senses. So when a client, for example, might paint their future story, visually for us, or might tell us what that might look like, then we will also use our senses. What would that look like? What would that feel like? As big as, and ask for some descriptors for them, or as cold as, and ask them for a descriptor again. So metaphor stories are really about, in coaching, we call it embodiment. And so it really is about embodying the feelings or the senses or the emotions that lead to that ultimate, the successful, and feeling it creates also a better plan and a better ability to step into action. Reframing really is exactly, what we've learned a lot in school, but we do have to be careful. Anyone in social work, you have to be careful that reframing doesn't come across sometimes as condescending in a coaching or a social work type of relationship. And so we want to support our clients to think differently, or alter limiting beliefs, or invite other possibilities. We also might want to use our I'm sensing something, how does that land with you? And offer other solutions or reframe a problem for them to change limiting or to promote limited belief in themselves, in their situation, or invite a possibility for something beyond. What if it weren't this difficult? And again, that's using open-ended, powerful questions. What could it look like? And reframe that with them. For me, reframing is not, so what I hear you say is, it's more about using your senses. It's more about saying, I'm sensing, and then insert whatever emotion it is, how does that land with you? And for me, that really works in coaching. Personal goal setting. Now, we talk about this and it sounds really simple. Any of us in human services are often setting goals with and for our clients. And, and then sometimes you might find that personal goal setting continues to be the same goal repeatedly over and over and over again. And so each time you see the client, it's the same goal. And I hear that a lot as I train human service providers and bridges to say, do you ever have that client where you feel like you're just resetting the same goal over and over again? And so that's a good segue into taking personal goal setting to the next level and breaking it down a little bit. So you may, respectfully, and again, needing to have a relationship of mutual respect, chat with the client about, what's gotten in the way of, I feel like we keep talking about this same goal. We painted the picture, we've got the future story, we've got the plan to get there. I am right beside you as your thinking partner to help you. And each time we're setting the same goal again. So I feel like I'm missing something. And so you might say to the client, what is it that I'm missing? What's been getting in the way of you actually achieving this goal? Because I believe that you really want to achieve this. And so the client, might say, whatever their goal is, they might say, these are all the things. So as they're chatting, I'm jotting them down, whether it's, getting healthier or getting a job or, breaking off an unhealthy relation. It doesn't matter what the goal is, that you would ask what the barriers are and what's been getting in the way. And when the client lists out all the things that's been getting in the way, I'm just jotting them down on a piece of paper. But then the key is that I go back over them. And when I go back over them and I say, okay, you said, that this particular barrier. So for example, someone who might want to be getting healthier and says that they would like to exercise more. And I say, what's getting in the way? And the client may say, well, I was going to walk at night, but I actually don't feel safe in my neighborhood. Or, well, I don't have a good pair of running shoes, or I'm tired, I'm really tired and I don't have the energy to go exercise. So those are just some examples that I use in training with participants to just sort of keep it really basic. Most of us are setting goals around getting getting healthier. And so it usually resonates with your audience. And when we ask the individual to go back over what's been getting in the way, as I mentioned, now I'm going to go back over and say, okay, so you said that feeling unsafe in the neighborhood, walking in the evening or whatever, you feel is a barrier to you achieving this goal. Do you think that that's within your control or not within your control? And this is up to the client. If they say that's within my control, I put a C beside it. If they say that's not within my control, I put a U beside it for uncontrollable. And I do that for every barrier that they've told me. So don't have good shoes, is that within your control or not? Because the key is that sometimes when it's Groundhog Day, when we're setting goals with our clients, when we go back over the list of what is controllable and uncontrollable in coaching, when we actually go back over, we can only create action plans against the controllable obstacles. And we must help our clients create coping plans against the obstacles that are uncontrollable. And then we actually start to take baby steps towards achieving the goal. So I always encourage anyone who feels like they continue to set the same goals with their client repeatedly to break it down a little further and develop those action or coping responses to the personal goal setting. And it usually moves the client into action and supports the client in moving into action. Open-ended questions, we've talked about that for years, but what I've found and through learning through, my coaching background is actually beginning with a what or a how. And I learned that through coaching certification. And so when we begin our conversations through, any question, when you say to a client, have you tried such and such? That's a yes, no answer. Have you thought about going back to school? That's a yes, no answer. And so it really doesn't elicit a lot of thought there. And sometimes our clients will even tell us what they think we want to hear. And so we really want to open the conversation up much more broadly and reframe our questions and to begin with a what or how. And 9 times out of 10, that moves away from a yes or no response. So it could be something, and in conjunction with all of these tools, it can work extremely powerful. So when we're trying to bracket, for example, narrow down several issues that are on the table, we might say, what's really important for me to know right now? What's the most important issue that you want to discover and work on together in this 15 minutes that we have? Or you might say, what have you tried instead of have you tried this particular thing? And so often when, we learn in Bridges around that we have a really strong writing reflex when we are in human services, and we really want to fix things. We want to help our clients, and it's with greatest of intent. However, when we often are implying the solution to our clients, and when we move our questions to open-ended what or how, it actually puts the client in the driver's seat of the conversation much more. And silence is okay. When I say, what have you tried? And it's silent for a few seconds, sometimes we feel like we need to fill that space. But silence is really powerful in coaching. Often it means that the client is thinking. What's stopping you? What's gotten in the way? How will you get there? What's your plan? Those are all really powerful questions that put the client in the seat of accountability, of making choices, of taking next steps, and of knowing that you are right beside them, supporting them as their champion and, as the person in their corner to help them break that cycle and, start to move forward in their life, build stability, build the resources for stability that we learn about in Bridges as well. And so all of these tools, we're hoping as you teach them as Bridges trainers, that they will promote future orientation, choice, and power for the people that we're serving, for our most vulnerable population, to build those resources for stability and ultimately create well-being for all. And I encourage you as trainers to go through and spend some time at the end of the day, allow yourself even as much time as what I have in this webinar, to simply go through them, give a few examples, make them relevant to the audience, depending on who you're training. And then have them go into a breakout to talk about which one really resonated with them and which one are they going to commit to going forward to try and use with a particular client that they might have in mind. As Bridges trainers, we increase understanding, and we increase the understanding of struggles that our clients experience in poverty. But by providing some concrete tools for our participants in training, then we're actually starting to change the way we do business. And then we're not just having a day of improving understanding that we might forget, 6 months later, but we've actually given some tangible strategies and tools that can ultimately improve relationships and then improve our outcomes and our systems as well. And so, you know, at the end of this webinar, just really reminding everyone that change sometimes is slow, sometimes it's baby steps. All of these tools will help you in your relationships with clients and will help you teach your participants of training. And we have to remember that it takes time and that change will happen quicker when we have a trusting, mutually respectful relationship. So I wish you all well, and thank you for spending some time with me.